It is a Tuesday, February the 17th. Ooh, that music cut off quick. February the 17th. We are through Valentine's Day, through payday, through all the things that occurred over the weekend, including the Daytona 500. That one of your favorites? You loved it. It looked like you loved it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a great race. And you nearly came out on top with maximum points in the first ever halftime show NASCAR Survivor Challenge.
It was, okay, let me be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what happened.
Okay.
And this is why I love watching it, because
All right.
I was in and out of the race a little bit. There was a lot going on. I was really involved because they moved the race up an hour because of the rain.
Right.
I was really involved in the AT&T Pebble Beach because you had so many big names, and Scheffler's making a charge, and there's all these kind of crazy things going. And so I had the two TVs going. I got the one on mute with the race, and then I had the big one going with the Pebble Beach with the sound, but there was so many things happening. So to give you a background of how I watched the race, especially early, where's my guy?
So it's funny because, especially now that we're doing this, I was keeping tabs on how all three of our picks were doing. Of course, Doug picked Kyle Busch, sat on the pole, ran towards the front. A lot of the race, my guy Cody Ware got to about 12th to 15th at one point, so he was in pretty solid standing. And Rick Stenhouse Jr., your pick, was out at the back for most of the race. I mean, just kind of hanging out, biding his time, which that's not a bad strategy. You do that to avoid big wrecks and stuff like that. But right there at the very end, and there was multiple wrecks on the last lap. But lo and behold, as Tyler Reddick is crossing the finish line, amidst a second crash happening, here comes Ricky Stenhouse Jr. coming across in second. So you nearly got maximum points in your first try.
Almost.
So
well,
you won the weekend, just not with a win for your driver that would have gotten you 8 points.
I like the pick, and I wasn't feeling like I was going to use it. Like I put on Twitter, I'm in the pros now. I'm no longer in the amateur pick'em contest. I'm in the pros. I've got to bring my A game each, because you and Doug, y'all know your stuff. Like we're, the other group. Okay, it's funsies and it's gamesies, and there's not a lot of knowledge of what's going on. You and Doug know your stuff, and so I thought about it. We ought to call it two gurus and a gunner.
We could. Yeah, I think our
well, that should be the name of the segment.
Title, yeah.
That should be just the name of the segment. Two gurus and a gunner, but the official NASCAR Survivor Challenge. So you like that? The race went well?
Yeah, it went well. I thought solid. There's, and we can get in this on Thursday when we talk to Doug, the debate about fuel saving and all that kind of stuff that changes the dynamic mid-race. But I thought at the end it delivered how Daytona does. I like clean runs to the finish, but wrecks happen. And cool story, Tyler Reddick winning. Michael Jordan, now a Daytona 500 champion owner, so that's pretty neat. And yeah, just excited that the season's gotten rolling.
I'll tell you what was also really cool is on Saturday night, I ended up watching... And this speaks to another thing that we'll get into a little bit today, because, man, oh, man, has the NBA All-Star Game just lost it. Just.
Oh, you're not a fan of what they've done?
No, I just, no. I'm an old-school NBA All-Star guy, and it's part of it is not Adam Silver or the NBA's fault. It's the players' fault, to which I do get. Like, you're making a lot of money playing in an exhibition game. Who cares? You don't have the same guys. But... And so this is where, again, it's two gurus and a gunner with the NASCAR segment. Whatever the Saturday night race was.
The O'Reilly Auto Parts Series.
300, I believe.
I got to fix that, yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
and there was wrecks happening everywhere, and you had, was it Jesse Love and...
Austin Hill.
Austin Hill. Okay, I was going to call him Austin Hall.
An absolute menace at speedway races.
Oh, apparently the guy that I was watching with Jim Thompson, who is he normally is in Daytona. He's normally got a suite, and I'm always invited, and I never go, and I'm going to go now. But he knew all about it. He was telling me, I think it's Austin Hill. Yeah, was telling me that he's one of the best running restricted place rates. And
you can't beat him.
As a novice, as someone who's learning, I thought the Daytona 500 as a whole, from what I watched.
Sure, yeah, it was a great weekend overall.
It answered the bell. The AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, or AT&T Pebble Beach, was phenomenal. Colin Morikawa gets the victory there. You had multiple guys coming in with chances for eagles on 18. The weather was playing phenomenal on Sunday. That was really fun to watch. Scotty Scheffler goes out like a pro's pro and shoots a 63. I like Scotty Scheffler's new strategy. Just be average, be below average almost on Thursday, and let everybody get a 10-stroke lead, and then be like, all right, Now let me turn it on and see if I can come back. And he almost does. Morikawa makes the shots down the stretch. A really cool way for him to win. And then to be able to announce, hey, me and my wife are having our first baby.
Yeah, it's been a pretty fun start to the golf season so far. You had the drama at the Wasted Management the other weekend. That, ending the long streak of him not being able to win is pretty cool. And, man, before we know it, we'll be at Masters time.
Yeah, it's coming. They got one more signature event this weekend. Technically, the Tiger Woods event, the Riviera, the Genesis Open, which will be another really fun tournament. 80 players, no cuts, and they're back at the Genesis Open, where last year they could not participate because of the fires and everything. So that'll be a lot of fun. So those two sports, and I'm just going to say niche sports because I know not everybody gets into them. They're more of the Sunday afternoon. I love the golf on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but more of the Sunday afternoon napping sports. And Sunday around here was a washout. It was rainy.
Yeah, good day to stay inside.
Yeah, it was absolutely perfect. Also, over the weekend, you had baseball. And we will get into this today. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. I don't come out of the weekend feeling good. For questions, and we talk about excitement, and we talk about, fair expectations, and we talk about all this stuff. I don't come out of the weekend feeling good about what I witnessed.
You won the series, which it'd be a lot worse if you ended up dropping that second game. Thankfully, KJ Scobie came through, or Tyler Bach in the 8th inning, and then KJ Scobie comes through with the home run there in the bottom of the ninth. So you at least check that box. But in terms of feeling good about the offense, and it's one weekend, 3 games, it's not indicative of what the entire season is going to look like. But I think we were hoping for a little more, considering the struggles that you had on that side of the ball, a season ago, and it just didn't really look like you got things clicked back into gear, especially on Saturday in game number 3, famously 4 for 30 with runners in scoring position, which was a big issue a season ago. So it didn't seem like through the first 3 games that issue had been fixed. Pitching was good. I thought pitching was solid throughout the weekend, and pitching can get you to a point, but if you want to be consistent and win this league, you're going to have to score runs, and we didn't see enough good things at the plate this weekend to make you feel confident. Right now, at least, there's more baseball to be played, obviously. Right now, at least, as you look towards conference play and Clemson coming up in a couple weeks.
Well, here's how I view it, and I like to be a positive person in general. I think y'all know that. Spin's a strong word, but I like to generally look on the bright side and try to be positive, especially about sports, which are pretty much irrelevant when you talk about real life issues, right? I don't get upset. Like I see people get wildly upset. We're going to talk about something that people seem wildly upset about, and that's the Luke Doty situation. Okay. I'm like, what? Come on, guys, let this one go. But I don't get all that upset about sports. But I came out feeling more negative about the series and about the prospects as a whole. Now, mind you, on Friday, as we're going into the season, Thursday, we didn't do a show Friday. I didn't do a show Friday. Thursday, it wasn't that I was excited, but I was like, all right, I'm really interested to see, and I'm hoping for a great season because it's fun. Tonight, they play Wofford. I'll flip it on the SEC Network Plus. That'll be my lead-in to South Carolina basketball. Yes, I'll watch. I don't know what's wrong with me. Trust me. I've been to therapy multiple times in my life. I still haven't figured it out. But Tyler, you mentioned the numbers there with runners in scoring position, and the fact that you are the skin of your teeth away from being 1 and 2. Now you're also bases loaded, best hitter at the plate. You're the skin of your teeth away from being 3 and 0.
Same guy gets the opportunity to be here 2 days in a row, comes up short the second time. So yeah, it was pretty thin. Now again, the argument that a lot of people make is, well, it's Northern Kentucky, should have beat them more handily. And you look across the SEC, and there are plenty of teams that dominated their non-conference opponents. Florida dropped a game to UAB, Georgia dropped a game to Wright State. So you're not alone there necessarily. And you hope you can chalk it up to just early season jitters. Again, we'll get into what Maneri had to say about the health and energy of the team for game number 3, which is obviously a concern. But I can understand coming away from the weekend feeling negative because it wasn't wow, right? And I think we were expecting, considering the mass overhaul of the roster, all the changes that have been talked about this offseason, to give us something that really knocked our socks off, right? And you just didn't really have that from an offensive standpoint. Again, I thought pitching was solid, all things considered, especially your three starters. Riley Goodman, for his first ever college start, gave you a really solid outing on Friday night. Amp Phillips, Brandon Stone in game number 3. But, yeah, just the offense just didn't look that much different than what we saw a year ago.
Yeah, and so we'll talk more about that. It's only 3 games. A lot can change. You mentioned it. Georgia losing to Wright State. I think it's probably the worst loss, I guess. I'm not familiar with UAB.
So Wright State was the winner of the Horizon League last year. So maybe technically Carolina's lost to
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. Florida to UAB and Georgia to Wright State. Would you say, like...
Yeah, probably the UAB one's the worst.
Because I think Northern Kentucky is, I'm not trying to defend them, universally was picked second.
Yeah.
To finish wherever they are, to finish second in their league. But no, it's not a good law. It's not a good law. You don't do it. But I've seen worse. Look, one of the years South Carolina lost the national championship. This is just kind of what I go back to in baseball early on if I'm trying to be optimistic. And remember, I like to be optimistic. I go back, South Carolina lost to Francis Marion one year in a national championship season. Yeah. They went down there and lost to D2 Francis Marion. So it is baseball. Think things happen, and we'll kind of go from there and see what happens. Basketball over the weekend. Did you watch that game?
Men's basketball?
Yeah.
I was in and out. I was mainly paying attention to the women's game, though.
Yeah, and there was the women's game going on. That was a weird game to watch. I don't know if you felt this way, and I'm not trying to pick on the men's basketball team. That is not my goal. I'm just telling it like I see it. It was like South Carolina showed up to play, and Alabama was there to, just hang out.
Yeah.
It was a weird, for me, I can't speak for y'all if you watched it. If you did, kudos to you. 8:30 game, you mentioned it. LSU South Carolina was an entirely different animal, and we'll get to that, and was a ton of fun to watch. I had the 2 TVs going, so I was watching both at the same time. But the men's game, it was really odd to watch because it felt like South Carolina's, they're playing hard.
Yeah.
You don't have a Jerome Tang situation with Lamont Paris where he's going to call out his players. But it's like Alabama was just in the gym shooting.
Just hanging out. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they're feeling a little meh after the Bediako thing from a couple days before, knowing it probably wasn't going to take a valiant effort to beat Carolina. Yeah. We can go out there and play our C-plus game and be all right.
It's not. I just say this as a former coach, as a former player, it's not the way you want somebody else to treat you.
Yeah. Yeah, that says more about you than it does them.
I would rather get beat the way Florida beat them last time, where it looks like Florida's trying and doing it, than the other team just literally out there.
Well, Florida looked like they were trying to see how many points they could they break the scoreboard, right? And for Alabama, it's we can beat them. We don't really need to it's like when you're playing an older sibling in a pickup game, and they're kind of letting you in it, but they're not afraid of losing type thing.
And then there was the women's game, which again. Depending on how you think, I know some of you out there, you're not Malaysia Fulwali fans. You had a big night because, boy, did she struggle. South Carolina played really well. We saw I didn't know if we had. Did I not know that there was a massive love affair between Dawn Staley and Raven Johnson? And here's the comment after the game. Dawn, if you didn't hear it, Dawn said of all the players she's ever coached, and obviously she's coached some phenomenal ones.
Yes,
not great ones. Phenomenal ones, maybe some of the best to ever play the game of women's basketball. And she said that Raven Johnson is the player she will miss the most ever out of all her players. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I don't recall her saying anything in that kind of realm before, but I get it. You know what I mean? She's been a very important part of this insanely successful run. She's never not gone to a Final Four in her time here at Carolina, which is in and of itself is crazy. A lot of success in high school, too. She's just a winner.
803-404-6100. There's a lot to get to, plus some football stuff. Trinidad Chambliss is now eligible to play. We'll tell you about the Heisman odds. Greg McElroy thinks South Carolina's a sleeper. We'll get into that. A lot to do today. You're listening to the Halftime Show. is curling the sport that we are beginning to love with no knowledge of how it works, as you just brought up?
Because I think I'm supposed to be on the edge of my seat for this U.S.-China matchup, but I'm not sure when it ends.
Well, they're in the 10th. It says 10th end, and I think you're right. I feel like we might be in overtime.
Okay, I see a little there's 2 dots left. So
what I learned initially is that means there's 2 slides, throws.
All right.
So you're right, because I've started to realize I'm with you on this. I thought I knew curling because
we have timeouts now. All right.
Oh yeah, you got timeouts.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have now come to because we are doing well in curling this year.
Yes, apparently so.
We're doing really well in curling, and what I think has occurred here is at least in this small part of the country, or at least in the little sphere that I'm in, people are into it. But to your point, I only bring this up. It was not on my topic of thing to bring up. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and I could go Google the rules right now and learn everything I can in 5 minutes, but I enjoy the ignorance is bliss sometimes thing of just watching it and trying to understand it as it's happening with Olympic sports. Because again, we're not going to talk about these sports again for another 4 years.
Right.
So I'm all right, I'm just going to take it for what it is, and I think we're doing well.
We're facing China. This is, I believe, the men's. I don't know if it's the singles or the doubles. I mean, there's so many events now.
I think it's doubles because there's 2 sweepers. If that's the proper term.
Okay, maybe it's just a team event then. If it's 2 sweepers, I don't know, but it's 5-5 in the 10th end. China. I'll give you an example. I've also learned there's a hammer, which I believe is just the final throw.
Okay.
Or the final slide. I don't. Yeah. I'm with you. Because I think we've all gotten into it, and the one thing I would request is whomever is broadcasting, we need more of a breakdown of what's actually transpiring, like how some of this is, because I believe right now it's tied 2-2 on this frame with the final throws, the final slots. Whatever. Oh, by the way, you see there's shot clocks too.
Okay. Oh, all right. Neat.
So you start each with 36 minutes.
Okay.
And so when you're doing this, when you're walking around and you're looking at everything, and I believe that is officially the coach. No, that's the alternate. But when you're walking around, your clock is running, and so then we've called timeout, but your clock is running, and if I guess I don't know what happens if you run out of 36 minutes. I guess you're just out of time.
Okay.
Sure. And it looks like I'm with you, but it feels like everybody's gotten into it.
I'm fascinated. It's so interesting because again, it's not something we usually pay attention to, but heck yeah, USA.
803-404-6100.
I have a trivia question about curling.
Well, let's get it. Why not?
It's totally unimportant. 1965 movie The Help by the Beatles.
Okay.
There's a curling scene in it with John and George. There really is. It takes place in Austria, but Paul and Ringo aren't there. Do you know why they weren't there?
They were filming another movie?
No, they were off in the woods smoking dope. True story.
Like on purpose, or they got lost, or they lost track of time?
Well, it could be either if you do that.
I believe you, Dave.
But if you ever watch the movie Help, and I'm sure you never will, there's a curling scene in it.
No. I did watch over the weekend Predator Badlands, if we're going to go down that little path there. I did take in an older movie. I think I watch movies how we all watch movies now. I'll wait till it streams, and then I take it in.
Sure.
And go from there. 803-404-6100. So what do we make of the baseball series this weekend? 803-404-6100. Weigh in with your opinion. I got to feel a lot of it is going to be negative, in my opinion. But let me ask again. I don't know. I come out feeling kind of icky. I think I was concerned about this.
Yeah. Again, it's only 3 games. Still got 53 more to go in the regular season. So it's not set in stone. This is what you are. But again, I go back to the point where I think we were just looking for more offensively in the first weekend, considering everything that had changed, everything that had flipped in the lineup. 6 of your starting 9 were brand new faces, for Friday, and you moved some things around over the course of the weekend, but nothing was like consistent. You weren't scoring in the early innings. Again, it took a little bit of a heroic effort there in the bottom of the 8th in game number 2 to just tie the thing up, to give Scobie the opportunity in the bottom of the 9th, and then on Saturday, you just weren't there at all. And again, we'll get to what Maneri said about that coming up in a moment, but it wasn't a series that made you feel great coming away from it. Yeah, you won the series at the end of the day, which if you're going to pick one thing to do, that would be the thing to do. But outside of solid performances on the mound, you just didn't have a ton to be like, yeah, okay, this is what you're going to hang your hat on this year type thing.
And the thing is, Tyler, you pointed out, would you say 6 of 9 new starters?
Yeah, for Friday.
I don't, how much is there to be gelling? How much is there to be gelling for a baseball team and trying to just kind of get used to playing actual games where the win-loss matters?
I don't know if that matters as much at the plate, though. You know what I mean? Because that's an individual performance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, to your point, like, I don't know. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to be like, none of that matters.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. Baseball, it's not an individual game. It's a team game. But it's not like playing point guard and you're trying to gel with your teammate and you're used to him being in the corner when you drive, or as a football quarterback, you're used to how your wide receiver runs routes and you're trying to gel with him. Baseball is a little bit different. I do know there are certain things like covering second and doing all that wild stuff. But with that being said, it just, I'll say this, it came off to me with too many 2025 vibes. Too many 2025 vibes. And that right there kind of like tells me, uh-oh. Because whatever happens tonight with basketball, and we'll talk basketball later, we know where we're at with that. It's and just you're coming off of football, Tyler, and I think Jamie Bradford put it best. Fans are just, baseball's catching the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of the year-end sport. Whereas at least in August, kind of like on New Year's Day, we feel renewed. Well, in August, we feel renewed. Okay, new sports calendar year.
Right. Well, and, if you're coming off, let's say Maneri comes in here and you're number 1, and you host a regional and make a super or something along those lines, we're not freaking out about this because you have something to fall back on from a year ago saying, hey, I know we didn't start off the season great, but look what you did last year. We're going to be all right. Well, last year you don't have that. You have a historic, terrible season, not only for South Carolina, but for Paul Maneri. So you're kind of in uncharted waters in terms of where this program sits as of right now, and you're looking for those things saying, okay, that is what's going to be better. That is what looks better from a year ago. That's where this team's going to make its difference and going to be able to compete in the SEC. And the weekend number 1, you didn't see enough of that.
803-404-6100. Casey, I see you on the phone lines. I tell you what, hold through the break. We will get to you. That way we can give you a little bit more time, and we'll let you discuss what you want. You're listening to Tyler Head, Captain David Ayer, Bill Gunner. It is the Halftime Show. 12:33 on your Tuesday. I'm not sure if you got the Monday off or not. It was weird yesterday, by the way, because my son, Lexington 1, because of the snow days, got put back into school.
Oh, really?
So, as a parent, when the kids are out, I feel like it's a true holiday.
Right.
Like, I feel like, I know the banks were closed yesterday and everything was going on, but but when the kids are out, you feel like it's a true holiday, especially when we're taking the day off. So when you got to get up at 7 a.m. to go to take the kid to school, and I didn't have a doctor's appointment. I had nothing going on.
Yeah.
It's very confusing as to what exactly I'm doing with my life. Like,
Sure.
I'm like, I felt like I was supposed to be here because I'd taken Austin to school, and it wasn't a true day off, but it was a day off. And so I don't know how many of y'all yesterday had President's Day off, but hopefully a 4-day week, and weather's going to be phenomenal this weekend. More baseball coming up this weekend. Great golf, another NASCAR event. How far away are we from the UFL? Any idea?
Oh, I saw the commercial. I think it's like a month away.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you look forward to that.
I mean,
It's the USFL, right?
Is it the USFL?
I think it's USFL.
Okay. Yeah.
One of them.
I do not watch.
They've all merged. I don't know. If you need football, there you go.
803-404-6100. Casey, let's go to the phone lines. Thank you for holding through the break. How you doing? What's on your mind?
Fellas, I'm doing fine. I hope y'all are doing well.
Doing good.
Yep.
With sports in general, especially nowadays, you definitely got to take it a year-by-year cases, especially in our baseball team's case, just because of roster turnover. Now, as important as practice is and as important as all those team-building exercises that McNary did, those are just different than a game. That's reality. And, if you look at it realistically, you're rarely going to see a team with that much roster turnover jive like a team that's been playing consecutively. And so this year is probably going to be, can they survive long enough to make it to the postseason? From what I saw, they've got enough players that wake up at the right time and make plays. And that's something, honestly, we haven't had enough of those players in the past, because when it came time to win, our players wasn't coming through, the ones that were supposed to. So that was the bright side to what I saw, is when we had to win, we won. And I think that they will get better as the year goes along. But again, a lot of that will depend on how healthy can they stay. And if they could stay healthy, then I don't see no limit to what we could do, because things are continuously going to get better. And the more they play together, the better they're going to play together. And, things will get cleaned up. That's what I'm saying. So it's definitely wait and see. But as long as they can survive till postseason, I think that we have a good team on us.
Appreciate the phone call. Yeah.
Thanks, Casey.
Let's address, it was a weekend of comments.
Yes.
A weekend of comments. And quite frankly, nobody did themselves down there any favors with comments. Let's start with baseball and going back to what Casey's saying about surviving. Paul Maneri on Saturday, Game 3,
Yep.
says that the players were tired.
Yeah, this is going to be cut number 2 here, Dave.
Let's listen.
It wasn't really today, David, just with runners in scoring position. We just didn't swing the bats good at all today. It's just it's hard to understand, really. I expected a lot more. I told you yesterday I thought we'd come out and really explode today. I knew the guys were tired from yesterday. It was a long day, 18 innings. It was, we had a lot of guys whose legs were cramping and so forth. So we decided not even to take batting practice on the field and just do it exclusively in the batting cages to try to let their bodies heal a little bit. But obviously, I didn't have them ready to play today. They just needed to, be a little more disciplined and ready to go. And I just kind of felt like, they played like they were very tired from yesterday. And, no matter, what you try to do to inspire them, sometimes it just doesn't work. And, I just felt like, everything was just in slow motion today, that we were doing a lot of walking around. Our bat speed wasn't good. We were swinging at bad pitches. And, I thought we were going to go the other direction today. I thought they'd be really excited about playing. It's only the second day of the season, but I just think, maybe it wasn't the right thing to do. We should have just gone through a batting practice session. If guys were too sore to play, I should have just played somebody else. But I just thought we'd be hitting better than we are.
Let me start with this.
Mm-hmm.
There is a level of accountability that Paul Maneri takes there that I do appreciate. All right? Remind you, I'm a positive guy. There's a small level of accountability that where Paul Maneri said I should have played other guys. It's my fault. I didn't have them ready to play. I can appreciate that. It's game freaking 3. It's day 2 of the season. What do you mean guys are sore? Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I'm not a genius. As said in the movie Waterboy, I'm not a smart man. I'm not a smart man. 6 years. 6 years in college. You aware of that? For a history degree.
Oh, a lot of people go to college for 6 years.
And I'm not a doctor. Just answer me this. Northern Kentucky also played 18 innings on Friday, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything.
Yep.
I got a haircut on Friday. I have no hair to pull out. I really shaved my head back. Like, I would pull my hair out. What are you talking about? What in the world are they Did you not work out in the offseason? Are you not in shape? Do we have guys on the team that don't know how to keep their bodies in line to play college baseball? That is unacceptable.
Well, and, we go back to last offseason with the piece that Whittle wrote about things that were kind of happening behind the scenes in the program. One thing I remember was the changes to their offseason workouts the year before, like the offseason coming into Maneri's first year. They weren't in the weight room as much, all that kind of stuff that seemingly had been changed and corrected this offseason. Well, apparently, whatever they were doing was not building up stamina, it seems like, because, again, that became a problem very quickly on Saturday. And you've got to remember, these are 18 to 22-year-old kids. Like, it's a difference between being that age and being in your 30s and 40s and trying to go out there and play 18 innings in another game the next day. You're kind of still in that realm where your energy should still be pretty high. These guys did it in high school and travel ball and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's one of the situations where Maneri is too honest sometimes and gets himself in trouble. Because if he just says, well, we just, we didn't attack the ball at the plate today, we just had an off day or whatever, we'd still be critical of it, but we wouldn't be talking about it in the same way of like, you're tired after the first day of playing this entire year. Well, guess what? You got 53 other games. You're going to have more doubleheaders. You got one scheduled with Princeton coming up in a couple weeks. Rain's going to inevitably make you play 2 games in the SEC in the same day at some point. Like, you better be ready for it. And that's the thing about conditioning. You can't suddenly change it now. You're in the season. Conditioning and fatigue and all that kind of stuff is addressed in the off season, in August, October, all those kind of times. You have what you have now, and I really hope this isn't a consistent issue with this team.
Well, here's the other part to this, and I'll be honest, and I haven't hid this. I'm a fan. I want to see him win. I'm tired of him losing. I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of all this. I'm like y'all. I'm tired of all this. But this is another program, because we're going through this a little bit with basketball, where Lamont Paris is questioning the effort at times of his team. And this is why I don't mind some of what Paul Maneri said. In a roundabout way, he's questioning the effort of his team. Tyler, you played high school athletics.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said you played for wrestled for a state championship.
Yeah.
So you understand the level of getting at that level to getting to being the best.
Sure.
And the effort and the work. And there are days that you show up and you don't want to do it. This is the University of South Carolina. There's a level of pride that those players have to have. And that's where this baseball program is right now. That they're on Saturday, I apologize, I'm going to say Sunday a couple times because it's just natural instinct. But on Saturday, there is a level of pride that you have to wear the SC. That's the logo they use. They don't use USC. Y'all know that. There is a level of pride that they have to have. I just heard that they don't have pride. That's what I hear. They don't have pride to represent this baseball. Now, they can be fixed. They can be fixed. There's 53 games left, right?
Yeah.
You can fix all that. It's all fixable. Those are discouraging words, and I think that's what makes me feel worse coming out of the weekend.
Well, and now we have something that we're going to hyperfixate on going forward. And, okay, you're going to play your midweek games, tonight against Wofford, tomorrow against Gardner-Webb, and maybe you go out there and blow both those teams out. It's run rules, whatever. But as we get into these weekend series again, we're going to be really looking at, as you go into the weekend, how do you hit? How do you perform? What's your fatigue level? What's your level of care? And all that kind of stuff. And if we're routinely saying, man, this team just really drops off once you get past, the 15th inning of the weekend or whatever, we're going to be in for a lot of problems. So, again, hopefully this was a one-weekend anomaly and they get things straightened out, but it was less than encouraging to hear that coming away from the first series of the weekend.
Just for the record, March the 7th, that's a Saturday, South Carolina will have a doubleheader against Princeton.
Correct.
Already lined up, 1 p.m. and then 4:30, 5 o'clock or whatever, and then play again on Sunday. So there is a chance for them to, in a month, come back and kind of get that fixed. I don't even know what is fixable about that. And I'm with you, Paul Maneri maybe being too honest there. That's also kind of, by the way, throwing your team completely. There's a level of accountability where he says it's also a level of throwing your team under the bus. Like, hey,
a little bit.
Is everything cyclical? Let's talk about that.
Great question.
Paul Maneri had his words. Ray Tanner had his words. We'll talk about Ray Tanner telling us it's all cyclical when we come back. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market. Have you seen the weather? Are you like me? It is grilling season, baby. It's time to get to Old Timey Meat Market. I can hear it right now. If you listen very closely, there are delicious steaks calling your name at Old Timey Meat Market. With the absolute best cuts of meat at the absolute best prices, there is only one butcher shop in this town that you need to go to. And good news for you, they got 3 locations: South Congaree, St. Andrews Road in Irma, or the Lexington store. Stop by today. Let's start spending some time outside, hitting up the grill. Maybe you want something great to put on the stove in the afternoon. You can do that as well. Whether it's steak, pork, chicken, great fish, oysters, they've got everything for you. And the best part, it's a non-grocery store meat buying experience. They want to talk to you and get to know your name. That's why I love Old Timey Meat Market. Stop by today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you. $12:47 on your Tuesday afternoon, and what will hopefully be a short week, and then we'll get you set for the weekend as we have officially moved past football. But coming up in hour number 2, we'll talk a little bit of college football. Greg McElroy calling South Carolina a sleeper team. I think that's great news. I think you should embrace it. I think you should be happy about it. And we'll talk about that also. Now that Trinidad Chambliss is back, there's some new Heisman odds out. We'll give you those as well as give you the odds for Lenora Sellers. But talking a little bit of baseball from the weekend right now, some of the things that came out of that. Gamecocks 2-1. Again, we will have coverage for you tonight right here for the baseball game coming up. The Gamecocks travel up to Wofford. Good opportunity tonight for the baseball team. That game will actually be on WOMG.
Yep.
WOMG tonight, 5:15. The men's basketball game will be pregame with Derek and Casey at 6:30, 7 o'clock tip time. We may talk basketball later. They're a 23.5-point underdog last I saw. But baseball tonight on the road at Wofford. And I will say this, going on the road, opportunity to bounce back, that's, you know what, if you're tired, you got to get on a bus.
Yeah.
You got to travel. Let's see how they do.
Yeah, tonight's going to be interesting to see in that regard. And another thing that I think, adds to the frustration from the weekend is, last year, as bad as the season was, you didn't have any problem with mid-majors in non-con. You beat quite literally all of them. You're not one, was it North Carolina's the only team you lost to in the non-con?
Correct.
Of course, that's Power 4.
So they were 22 or 23-0.
Yeah.
And then I think got to 25 and then obviously lost.
You handled your business in all those games, and A, you lost one over the weekend, and B, were, a KJ Scobie home run away from not winning one over the weekend. So it almost kind of feels like you've kind of you're down to a level you weren't at even at the beginning of last year. So, yeah, going on the road to Wofford, being still fatigued, whatever that means to this team, is going to be a test tonight. And hopefully they pick up the win, hopefully comfortably so. And we have something more positive to talk about tomorrow before they take on another team in Gardner-Webb coming into Founders Park. So, yeah, this is gonna really test how conditioned you are here early in the season.
This is kind of a stupid comment, but it's just the way I feel because of the way we're judging and watching, and we're being ultra judgy on the baseball team right now, as we just talked about in the previous segment. Again, I mean, they're the skin of their teeth away from being 1-2 right now, based on that comeback on the Friday game and the KJ Scobie home run in that ball game. And I can't imagine what the conversation would be today if they had opened the season 1-2 and lost the afternoon Friday game and then turned around and lost. But I mean, you're talking about having to score two, giving up 3 in the 8th, having to score 2, and then score 1 in the 9th to get that ball game to extra innings, or the ninth inning home run. But this is going to be kind of stupid is what I'm going to say, but I do kind of feel this way. I don't know if there's ever such a thing as a must-win game in baseball, but for the sake of South Carolina baseball, maybe the sake for us, although when chaos happens is when these shows are normally best and you're upset and you call in and you text, don't lose these two this week. Like, I don't know if I can deem it must wins. Don't lose. That's all
For the sake of sanity, it would be in your best interest to win these games.
Yeah. Don't do that. 803-404-6100. How you can weigh in. So the other thing that happened this weekend, Ray Tanner sat down. Hadn't heard from Ray Tanner in quite some time. Ray Tanner sat down over the weekend, kind of talked with the media, kind of talked about different things. He was being inducted into the NCAA College Baseball Hall of Fame. Pretty cool deal for he and the one and only Kip Baltonight. And as soon as I get Kip just to sit down for 10 minutes and stop traveling, we're going to have Kip on and join us and catch up with him. I always love talking with Kip and getting his experience and expertise. And we'll have Trey Dyson on later on this week to talk about what he saw. But going back to Ray Tanner, one of the things he was asked about Lamont Paris, about basketball, kind of about everything, and Tyler, his exact words were, I guess the question was how things are going with men's basketball.
Well, it was just men's sports as a whole.
Okay, men's sports, yeah. But he says it is cyclical. I believe that it happens that way. There are ups and downs.
We have the clip.
Oh, we do?
Want to roll that?
Oh.
Yeah, cut number 19 here, Dave. This is Ray Tanner talking about men's sports being cyclical at this point.
Well, the thing that, it is cyclical. I believe that. That it happens that way. There's ups and downs, and, we're talking about men's basketball this morning a little bit with one of my friends, and, just a couple years ago, Lamont won 26 games. So do you forget how to coach? No. Things happen, and, for whatever reason, not everybody, there's 16 teams in the SEC, and, not everybody can be in that mode, but I know tonight the men and women play at the same time at 8:30, so I follow it closely, and I live vicariously through what's going on. I love being here, and you want everybody to do well and to win, and you check the softball scores if you're not there, or you see how equestrian team's doing. That's just what it's all about.
All right, let's get this clear. What do you expect Ray Tanner to say? Like, what do you expect anybody to say? Like, oh, yeah, they stink. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
He's not going to say that. So for anybody who, number one, gets mad about what he said, settle down. What do you think he's going to say? What do you think he's going to come out? I mean, he has eyes. We have eyes.
Yeah.
He's not going to go out and throw Lamont Paris. That's just not who Ray Tanner is, right? That's not who he is. However, this isn't cyclical with men's basketball.
Well, it doesn't have, that's the thing, and we're going to have time diving this on this side. It doesn't have to be cyclical. In a former version of college sports, yeah, that was probably true for a lot of the tenure that Ray Tanner here was the athletic director. It's not that way, or it doesn't have to be that way anymore. It depends on what you put in to what you get out. Now, again, if he's the active athletic director saying this, I think we're sounding the alarm bells a little bit more. He's the former. Jeremiah Donati's now the active athletic director. He likely does not share the same opinion on this, but a lot of people are upset about this, which I do understand. But to the point that he's trying to make, it doesn't have to be anymore. We're in a new age. You can change these things. It doesn't have to just be, well, they're not a great program. They're going to kind of have their ups and downs. No, you can change it very quickly if you put enough into it.
Well, the point being is we're on the verge of a third, and truthfully, a third historically bad basketball season in 4. That's not the definition of cyclical. That's the definition of that's what it is. We'll talk more about that, get into some football. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for over 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And the reason for that, customer service. That's right. Listen, a lot of people can come and roof your house. A lot of people can go and roof your business. But is their customer service up to the standard? Are they going to do not only the job, but are they going to do it in a safe, pleasing, and professional manner that makes you happy and keeps your operation dry and running long into the future? Well, I can guarantee you this. Mid-State Roofing will do that. That's why they've been the leader, again, for over 30 years because of the way they treat you, the customer. Again, there's a lot of roofing companies out there, a lot of people who can do the job, but you need to go with someone who's been the leader, someone who is there for you, who works and makes sure that that operation stays dry and running long into the future. 803-356-1919. Call Mid-State Roofing. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 1 o'clock on a Tuesday. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain David Ayer. Coming up at about 2:15 today, we'll be joined by the one and only J.C. Sherbert, and we'll get his take on all things Carolina. It was a busy Carolina weekend. First hour, they're talking a lot of baseball as it pertained to the opening series of the weekend. Gamecocks go 2-1, have no problem on the first game on Friday. Josh Gunther, I need to speak with him and see if we can get the H removed so he can be an official Gunter and join the family. But very good performance from him. And, you know, there were positives to take away from the weekend. I do think some of the pitching was something that you can take away and be pretty happy with. And I thought Josh Gunther on Friday in the 1 o'clock game was definitely one of those things when you go back and look at his performance. 4 2/3, gave up 2 earned runs, struck out 7, walked 1, faced 19 batters, and gave up 4 hits. Alex Valentine came in and shut down the Northern Kentucky with 2/3 of an inning for his first save of the year. Riley Goodman, 3 2/3. I'll be interested. Might see if we can get Jamie Bradford back on later in the week just to hear what he's got to say. But Riley Goodman, 3 2/3 on Friday, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, 3 2/3 innings for him. So, you know, overall, all in all, it was kind of one of those weekends. But it just the pressure, the kind of the stress, if you will, the expectation of South Carolina fans lends itself to when you go 2-1. I think extreme disappointment and not being thrilled with the outcome, and again, escaping by the skin of your teeth on the fight. I keep wanting to say the Saturday game, Game 2, to make sure you don't drop 2 of 3 to Northern Kentucky. But South Carolina doesn't, and again tonight, Wofford. And again, reminder: listen closely. That game will be on WOMG. What is that?
98.5.
98.5 is what that'll be. 98.5 WOMG. So if you want to listen to the baseball game tonight and not basketball, trust me, I understand.
I don't blame you.
98.5, and we'll get that going at about 5:15. This afternoon. First pitch scheduled for 5:30 today. So if you want to flip over on your car ride home and catch that, knock yourself out. And then basketball tonight, 6:30 pregame with Casey and Derek, 7 o'clock first pitch for that. We'll continue talking baseball because obviously we'll get back into the comments about Paul Maneri because it's just the stuff about being tired and sore and, well, you know, come on, man. Come on. That's not kosher. It's not good. It's not what you need.
Well, and again, look, you're as the head coach, you're the CEO of this business, right? We're always going to turn to you. So my question becomes okay, what have you not done in preparation for this? And I get it. The switch to a doubleheader was a last-minute thing, but that's just baseball, man. You have the scheduled one with Princeton coming up in a couple weeks, but you're going to get later on in the year, and you're going to have a series against Mississippi State. Oh, hey, guess what? Rain's coming in on Sunday. Going to play doubleheader on Saturday. You just have to be prepared for these kind of things. So what was not done in the lead-up? What was not done in the offseason? What was not done the night before? I don't know, that didn't prepare you physically as a team to be able to handle 18 innings. Like you said, Northern Kentucky played those same 18 innings. They went out there the next day. To my knowledge, they didn't suddenly bring in a new team on a bus from somewhere else to play that third game on Saturday, and they seemed fine. So what were you doing wrong? Where are you coming up short where you weren't prepared for that scenario that came about?
We'll talk more about that as we go through the show. 803-404-6100. Don't hesitate. Weigh in on it. I'll read it. Several of y'all have been weighing in. Brad weighing in said, I actually didn't feel terrible after the opening series. I can see some decent talent level on this team. It wasn't like they were getting overmatched by the opponent's pitching staff and striking out a ton like last year. Tons of hard hit balls that just didn't find holes. Our pitching staff was solid as well. Well, good. No offense, Brad. I'm just Good Lord, I hope they weren't overmatched by the pitching of Northern Kentucky. Then you got real problems when you face the 30 conference games.
Yeah, it's only going to get tougher from here. And again, you look around the league, and there's a lot of blowouts and run rules and all this kind of stuff. And you just didn't like, again, considering the fact of what last season was, particularly when it came to struggles on offense, I think we all wanted to see something that really like stamped you and said, hey, this is different. You know, all right, you run ruled them 11-0 in game number 1. You won game number 2 8-1, and then you swept the series by winning game number 3 9-2. Like those kind of things, I think what a lot of people were looking for in the weekend, and that is a lot to ask for. But again, we're trying to find reasons to feel different and feel optimistic about this team. And one of the biggest points of emphasis a year ago was the struggles on offense, and you didn't see anything that told you that this year's team is all that different. And again, there's 53 more games to go, so we could be looking back on this exact conversation 2 months from now and saying, man, remember how much we were overreacting to week number 1? They really turned it on, and they've been hitting home runs left and right, and they're the highest scoring offense in the SEC. But until we see something different, we're going to go off of what we have up to this point.
And Bill from Hartsville weighs in and says, just like last year, hitting with runners in scoring position is our Achilles heel. Maybe this has more to do with Monty Lee. We'll see. I can't speak to a hitting coach. Like, you know, I have no idea. I know Monty is considered one of the better ones in the business. Is it a player's thing? Is it a coaching thing? Is it a philosophy thing? I don't have enough knowledge to answer that, but we'll have Trey Dyson on later this week, and he'll discuss that. I apologize, Dave. Who do we have on the phone lines? Luke? Yeah. All right, Luke, let's hear what you got to say. Hope you're doing well today. Thank you for staying on hold. What's on your mind?
Nothing much, man. How y'all doing today?
Good.
Just calling. I wanted to call and say, be with Paul Maneri this year, because it's going to be tough, because he's coming. This fan base and the media, the way it's going to be with football, now basketball, and then baseball, we're looking for somebody that he just don't have a chance this year, because we're going to pile it on him, and it's going to be tough because it's all built up. This fan base, you can just hear it by the way you guys talk and callers call in. Everybody's just so fed up. They're looking for something to win to get us out of this, and hopefully Paul Maneri and the baseball team can prove them wrong, man.
Appreciate the phone call. You're 100%. Jamie said that last week. You're 100% right.
That's what I was going to say is our conversation with Jamie last Monday, where he said the baseball team has to carry the brunt or the burden of the struggles of these other sports. And is that fair to them? Maybe not necessarily, but as a fan base, especially considering how good, and I know you fired Kingston in 2024, but you were still in a regional at that point in time, how good men's sports were in 2024, all things considered, to the drop-off last year. And again, we turned our attention to men's basketball back in November, saying, okay, maybe this is the team that kind of gets that righted. Obviously, they're nowhere near close to that, and we're maybe having uncomfortable conversations about Lamont Paris here soon, so you then move over to the next thing. And then it becomes baseball. And again, I looked up today, we were 200 days away from football. Right? So baseball is square in the crosshairs of most people in terms of their joy and happiness when it comes to Gamecock sports. Women are their own thing. That's an anomaly because they dominate every single year. We expect them to be in the Final Four, and we've gotten almost, I want to say numb to that, but we've gotten used to it, right? This baseball programs we've talked about has been so good for so long, and they just haven't been anywhere near that in over a decade since Ray Tanner ultimately retired. And you're looking for any kind of optimism in men's sports right now, and again, baseball for the next handful of months is going to have to shoulder that load of carrying the expectations of this fan base for all men's sports.
803-404-6100. We'll continue talking baseball. We'll get into more of that. But coming up, we'll get into a little bit of football. 2 moves from the weekend. South Carolina loses a special teams coach. And we'll talk a little bit about that because interesting dynamic on what Shane Beamer may want to do. Do you hire a special team? We think we know what he's going to do, but let's play a little devil's advocate, and we'll talk a little bit about Shane Beamer and what maybe I think he should do. The random radio guy, Beamer's the head coach, but I'll give an offer on that. Also, a former player is now on the coaching staff, and some of y'all, for some reason, about lost your mind on this. We'll try and settle you down on that a little bit as well. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. It is the Halftime Show. It is 1:15 on a Tuesday. Coming off really, it's kind of funny, Tyler. Like, Tyler texts me every night. We're kind of like, all right, here's what we want to talk about, what we want to do. And I sent Tyler some stuff last night. And then I come in here and we start talking. And I'm like, oh, this happened. That happened. You know, it's like all of a sudden the brain.
I was like, if we get to those things, sure. But there's a lot of things that happen over the weekend.
There is, yeah. Well, one of the things that kind of came up is South Carolina losing special teams coordinator Joe DeCamillis. And Tyler, I'll be honest, prior to Shane Beamer, I don't know if losing a special teams coach was anything anybody cared about. And then Shane comes in, and we know the reputation for Beamer ball, but maybe more importantly, he brings in some dude named Pete Limbo. All right, Limbo, sure, whatever. Well, then Pete Limbo ends up becoming a stud around here. Press conferences are incredible. Special teams is doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and Pete Limbo becomes an absolute rock star, and South Carolina kind of becomes Beamer ball, Frank Beamer ball, but Beamer ball 2.0 under Shane, and a lot of us credit Pete Limbo for it. And then Pete Limbo leaves, and in comes Joe DeCamillis. And let me start by asking you this. It feels like we judged Joe DeCamillis against Pete Limbo, and he simply wasn't.
Yeah.
Pete Limbo, so we're like, well, it went from being an A+ to a C.
I wouldn't even say it was a C necessarily. I thought Joe D did a solid job. I think special teams, and it gets lost in the shuffle from how bad this past season was, but I thought special teams overall were pretty good to decent. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't terrible.
That's my kind of that's my point. Is like special teams they're fun, right? Like,
I didn't look at it and say, oh, this is a glaring problem on this team. No, that was offense.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess that's my point. Is like, Vicari Swain's running kicks back.
Yeah.
And
your punting Mason Love was really good punting the ball this year. I forgot Alex Joyce's numbers kicking, but like, it wasn't egregious. You know what I mean? Like, missed some kicks, sure, but it wasn't like, oh my God, get this guy out of here type thing. So yeah, I think all things considered, it was fine. And the difference in personality, does that have something to do with it? Sure, because again, everybody just loved Limbo, right?
Yeah.
How many other programs on the country had their special teams coordinator talking to the media every single week? I guarantee you none of them. Carolina did, because Limbo would just talk and talk and talk. He'd talk about wars and this part of history and that part of history, and you learn some stuff, right? And he gave you really good insight into the inner workings of his mind, the football team, and all that kind of stuff. I learned a lot of things just from listening to the guy talk. And Joe D's interesting to a degree, but not the same way Limbo was.
William Joyce this year. I mean, look, to your point, William Joyce this year, 12 of 15 on field goals.
Sure.
It was the long ones, 5 of 8 from 40 to 49 yards. And so that's
wasn't perfect, but it wasn't awful.
Reasonable. You're right. That's reasonable, and it's kind of one of those things. He was 7 of 7 inside of 40 yards.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're like, okay, that's about as good as you can ask.
They weren't losing games because they were missing field goals.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he was, by the way, he was 31 of 31 on the season with extra points. And then, as you were kind of talking about the punting there for South Carolina, I don't have actually the stats right in front of me on how good the punting was. But to your point, it felt like it was fine. Mm-hmm. And yet, I think because he wasn't Pete Limbo, we're like, average.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's just like when you have, a fun teacher in high school that teaches a topic that maybe you otherwise didn't care about. Like, man, I just really love that, Mrs. Jones in 10th grade math. She made it a lot of fun. Then you go to 11th grade math, and, the guy that's now teaching you is a lot more straightforward and not as funny. Like, oh, I hate math again. It's like,
right.
No, you're still learning the same stuff. They just made it more entertaining and came across in a different kind of way. And I think that's the same way we look at special teams. And, yeah, I think most programs in the country, if they lose a special teams coordinator, it's not a major headline. It's not something that's going to dominate discussion boards. But here at Carolina, given Beamer's history and prowess for it, it is something that's very important that does ask the question of, okay, do you take over it yourself or do you go out and hire somebody new? And if you hire somebody new, do they meet the same kind of qualifications that Limbo and Joe DeCamillis had? Because that was something that was significant about both those guys, was their experience in football before they came here.
So it opens the door now for a brand new special teams coach, if that's the direction you want to go. Now, here's my opinion. And Coach Beamer, if you're listening, I'm not arguing with you. You're the head coach, and I trust with whatever you do. I know he tends to get upset occasionally when we differ from what he wants to do. So let me
don't tweet about it.
Let me be very clear. I have full faith in whatever you do, and you're the head coach, and I believe in you. I'm just offering my simple opinion. I always love discussing sports with coaches and hearing their side of things, and I'm not trying to tell him what to do. I'm just saying what I would do. If it were me, I would, because of his background, I would take over special teams, and I would hire, say, another coach for another position. Now, I don't know what position that would be. I don't know where I really feel, quite honestly, Tyler, South Carolina is deficient with the coaching staff. I really like this coaching staff right now.
I do too.
Now, I haven't seen Stan Drayton or Randy Clements work, and we're going to find out more about Kendall Briles, obviously. But Travian Robertson and Devin Stackel, I really like. I think the Deion Barnes hire by Clayton White and Shane Beamer was absolutely phenomenal. I don't think you're going to miss a step losing Sterling Lucas, who was a good coach. Clayton White as linebackers. I feel like the linebackers have improved. Torian Gray speaks for himself. I think he's a really good coach. Again, we'll learn about the three new guys. Sean Elliott at tight ends coach. I really don't know what the tight ends coach does. I've got to be honest. The running back, again, Stan Drayton, Randy Clements, okay, and then Kendall Briles at quarterbacks coach. So I don't know where you necessarily need another guy. But the reason I would do that, twofold. One, I'd love to have just a secondary coach on the roster to say work with Travian or and here's my idea. I would actually probably hire a tight end, a young tight end recruiting coach, and have Sean Elliott almost like and I know they've already got roles, so it's kind of irrelevant, but almost like as a co-head coach who oversees other stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that was the important thing about Limbo and Jody Camillus is they were also associate head coaches as well. Limbo had coached at a couple of different stops before coming here, Ball State, Elon, and all that. Now a head coach again at Buffalo. Now he's left South Carolina, and Jody Camillus even coached in the NFL on an interim basis when he was with the Denver Broncos. So these are guys that have been around the sport a long time, had head coaching experience. It could be that extra set of eyes behind you in addition to coaching special teams. So does he go that same route, or does he just maybe try and hire specifically a special teams coordinator and allocate that role for one of the other guys on his staff that does have a lot of experience, like Sean Elliott?
Well, by all accounts, Chris West, John Whittle, Hale McGranahan are all saying he's going to hire a special teams coach, which is fine. I do totally get that. One of the other, so I would prefer, and again, I would prefer you hire another guy and bring him in and kind of go with it from there and allow them to help another position and have two chefs, if you will. The other part about the reason I would do that, there's something that I would like to see about Shane Beamer coaching special teams where he's in charge of a position group and kind of in charge of specific players where they have to truly answer. I know this doesn't kind of make sense because he's the head coach and they have to answer to him, but where he is just involved.
Yeah.
He's involved. I mean, let's be honest, special teams, I don't know what Joe DeCamillis does. Like, does Joe? You got the old Farmer Fran from, Waterboy, where he gets stuck with the kickers and he makes them run laps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was Joe DeCamillis working strictly, and Pete Limbo all practice long, working on form of kicking? And if that's the case, then I do totally get it. Like, are they over there for, say, 2 hours of a practice, strictly working on form and doing things, punting, kicking, whatever? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't either. And especially as, like, kickoff returns and stuff have diminished a lot in the game, like, how much does that factor in to your game-by-game, plan and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. I'd love to have one of these coaches explain to us what they do for an entire practice. They obviously serve a role, but specifically how they do that, I think still kind of something we don't have, full insight of. But, if you deem that is something that, you can't do as a head coach in addition to your head coaching duties, then yeah, absolutely go out there and get somebody for it. And if somebody that has a lot of experience, like your past two special teams coordinator hires have been, that's all the better.
Yeah, I'm that would be my preference, but I also completely understand looking out there and trying to bring in a specific special teams coach. And it will be interesting to see what direction or who he hires. Because, by the way, again, if you followed all of the insiders, Chris and Wes and Hale and John and all those guys, the general consensus is he's going to hire a legitimate special teams coach, and also all of us, especially us in the media, we all request you hire somebody with personality.
Yes.
Not that Joe DeCamillo's didn't have personality, but just you set the bar so high with Pete Limbo.
He did go after Joel Klatt that one time.
Okay.
For his with the Alabama game, for them not going for 2, where they could have made it a 2-score game, and he was upset about that because something Klatt said on his podcast. Because his stance was Klatt had never coached before.
Right.
I don't know. Klatt has played football at a pretty high level. So, but that was the most interesting thing that DeCamillo said here.
The other thing from the weekend that came out, and I thought this was funny because some of all the outrage was just on so many different levels. South Carolina does what I think they've been doing for the last 2 years. They just made it official. Luke Doty officially joins the football staff as basically a graduate assistant analyst, whatever role, however it is that these things work nowadays. And people were, again, nepotism means that you're related. I get that. But we're kind of like, oh, teacher's pet, he gets a job, keep him or bring him back. Well, hadn't we been saying this essentially? Oh, yeah. No, everything about Luke Doty says this guy's going to coach one day. And I threw it out earlier. I think he's going to be the head coach here in 20 years. Okay. I think this is where the journey starts. You know what I mean? And I think his degree has something to do with coaching as well. Like, it makes all the sense in the world that he'd start it here. And you look at most, like, coaching backstories, then we typically start out as a GA at the school that they played for and then go from there. Now, again, does that mean he's going to be on staff 5 years from now as the offense coordinator? I don't know, but it's start somewhere. And, again, Luke Doty, everything about him, his personality and everything screams coach to me, so why not? Let me also say this, because a lot of y'all are like, well, he's an offensive guy, wide receiver, quarterback, kind of an H-back at times, which is where I really thought they should have played him more often. But and now they're like, well, wait a minute. He's playing defense. He's going to the defense. He's going to be a defensive analyst. He's going to be with Torian Gray. Well, this is my opinion. I don't know how this goes. I don't know if Luke Doty went to Shane Beamer and was like, hey, do we have a graduate assistant spot? And Shane said, yeah. I don't know if Shane went, but our only graduate assistant spot is on the defense. Or did Luke Doty and go like, hey, I want to fully immerse myself in understanding all of it. Is there any defensive spots where I can, because that would make sense to me. Like you said, if you want to be a coach, Luke's grown up on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, sure. How much of an impact does a defensive analyst or an assistant, a grad assistant, really have? Now, remember, former Gamecock Jalen Foster is already an assistant back there and kind of the second in command, if you will, to Torian Gray, much like Jordan Dove was this past year when Travian Robinson went down. So Jalen Foster's already back there. But it makes sense to me from a Luke Doty standpoint to be like, I want to sit in on defensive meetings. I want to hear a defensive coach to grow him, as you just said, as a coach, wanting to be a head coach one day, to understand that side of the ball better when for the better part of, 15 years while he's been in college, he's been doing all the offensive stuff. Yeah, look, there are plenty of guys that played a position on one side of the ball, ended up coaching on the other side and become great offense coordinators or defense coordinators. You're not limited to just what you know. And Luke Doty being around football as long as he has, I imagine he knows a lot more about defense than maybe we give him credit for. And here's the thing. As we get in the season, you're not going to think about Luke Doty being on this coaching staff. It's not going to factor into absolutely anything at all. You know, you may see him in a photo and be like, oh, yeah, I forgot Luke's out there. Like, it's a nothing. Well, it's kind of like when they hired Jeff Collins to be like, again, I'm going to say backup, but whatever. A couple years ago, assistant, analyst, and people were all upset about the way he treated guys at Georgia Tech and gotten some hot water and everything. And people were like, "Why would you bring this guy in?" And you're like, "Oh, he was an awful head coach, but that had no bearing. He's not the reason they went 4-8 this past year." Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it was just like when they brought Freddie Kitchens in, and Freddie was a good hire because he had experience. But what exact role did he play? Now, the Freddie Kitchens thing might actually be kind of interesting because obviously the conspiracy theorists out there are still kind of going, well, sure, he might have called that Tennessee and Clemson game. And we're all like, we don't know. We don't know. 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in. We'll get back into some basketball. Women over LSU over the weekend. That's 18 straight. Is it what makes a rivalry? Is it a rivalry? Not this. Well, LSU disagrees. We'll tell you about it. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for over 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And again, you heard me talk about it. It is their customer service. Let me tell you, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Mid-State Roofing is there to help you. That's right. They want to be involved and make sure that they keep your operation dry and running by making sure that if you've got a leak, no matter what time, they are there to help you, because I don't know if you're aware of this, leaks can't tell time. They just kind of occur. So if something happens at 11 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m., you need a family that's going to be there. And that's why Mid-State Roofing stands out. You can give them a phone call and speak with an on-call technician. Whether you're here in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach, Aiken, or Augusta, Mid-State Roofing is there to help you. 803-356-1919. Give them a call. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
Actually, we were just trying to figure out what to wear, and we did, and our staff wanted to wear white, and then somebody else brought up, let's do the boo hoodies, and I think everybody stayed in character because I heard a lot of boos again.
Those are the words of Dawn Staley explaining the attire that was worn on Saturday night. Of course, it was it a year ago? It feels like a year ago. How many years run together?
It started at LSU, right?
Yeah, it might have been 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago.
Where they booed her, and she thought that they were calling. And then she had the mom joke, basically, that she thought they were calling her boo, her boo. And so she wore the boo hoodies. And now I see that we have marketed those, and they are for sale. But that's what makes a rivalry. I think, Tyler, I mean, look, yes, wins and losses play a role. And South Carolina's won 18 straight over LSU. Nobody would care about that stat if it wasn't for Kim Mulkey being there, to be quite honest. We would just be like, well, it's just another win over LSU. It's a rivalry because it's Kim Mulkey and because it's Dawn Staley and because these games are intense. And, I mean, they're fun to watch. I mean, I got to admit, my attitude and interest toward women's basketball is very minimal until we get to the Final Four. But you get games like that, and you have genuine, not hate, hate's a strong word, but you have genuine dislike for the other team. Like, genuine, nothing against Flau'jae Johnson. Great player.
Sure.
But you genuinely dislike her and, don't want to see her do well.
Yeah, no, and especially, and I know this is something you've brought up a lot before, we don't see as much movement in the women's game when it comes to transfer portal and stuff like that, to where you have the ability to establish feelings towards these players on your team, on their team. There's an ongoing saga between Raven Johnson and LSU, between Flau'jae Johnson and South Carolina, that builds up as the years go by, builds into the narrative of what this game was. You had the Malaysia Fulwiley angle to this as well, and you have a ton of stories for this game. And every single year they deliver, it's always a good game. And you're probably not going to find any atmosphere better this entire year than what you saw on Saturday night out there in Baton Rouge. And that was a big point of emphasis coming away from. It was like, hey, Carolina survived its toughest test that they have left. You're going to play a couple more games against ranked teams. That's going to be a challenge. Nothing like that in terms of environment. The SEC tournament's in your backyard. You're going to have a lot of Gamecock fans there. Outside of the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament, everything else is neutral site. So you're not going to have to deal with any kind of hostility to that level for the remainder of the year and to run for hopefully another championship. And you're able to pass that test. So the same thing when they come here. LSU's not going to see anything else like going into Colonial Life Arena and encountering that atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. So there's a reason why ABC put that game on prime time on Saturday night up against a ton of other sports happening that day, because they knew it's something people would tune into. And I haven't seen the numbers yet, but I imagine they're pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's Kim Mulkey who, good or bad, and I said this, and this is what I made a point about this, and people didn't agree with me, but I made a point about this as it pertained to golf and Patrick Reed coming back. All sports need a villain.
Of course.
All sports, everything, golf included, PGA Tour. And the fun thing about whatchamacallit, about Kim Mulkey is she's a villain.
Yeah, and she embraces it.
I'm pretty sure she embraces it. Yeah, I assume.
Listen, let's be honest. There's probably people in the LSU fan base that don't like Kim Mulkey, but are like, she wins. She's good for our program, so I'll deal with it, right? Because she just has she doesn't have an endearing personality by any means, but she wins, and that's why the significant. Like you said, if this was an 18-game win streak against any other team in the SEC, nobody would care. But the fact that that's a multi-time national championship winning head coach that just can't get over the hump of beating Carolina since she's been at LSU, it furthers that story.
And unfortunately, I assume it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, the law of averages tell you, at some point she'll get hers, but it hasn't happened yet.
There's going to be one guy. I mean, LSU's they were number 6 coming in.
Yeah.
And they were able to cut it. As far as the game itself, really fun game, especially the fourth quarter. Give credit where credit was due. The LSU fan base is into it. And that's the other part that I think makes a rivalry is when both fan bases are so engaged in this game. And again, South Carolina's got a huge winning streak. So, yes, it's easy to go, well, it's not a rivalry. It is. Mm-hmm. It is. But it's a rivalry because the fan bases don't like each other, genuinely don't like each other, and have no reason to. But the fan bases don't like each other. The games are intense. And I'm not 100% sure how much the coaches like each other.
Yeah, and it's a guaranteed thing every year. They play each other at least once in the regular season. You could likely see them again in Greenville coming up here in a couple. You could see them in the Final Four or something along those lines, like you did Texas a season ago. So it's a guaranteed thing you can look forward to every single year. And look, outside of this bubble in Columbia, there's a lot of people that don't like Dawn Staley. A lot of people that don't like her personality, don't like the way that she goes about things, and that's fine. But again, she is a character within the game of women's basketball that draws people in. Same thing with Kim Mulkey, and you get these two huge personalities going head-to-head in the best environment you'll see in college and women's college basketball all year long. It makes for great television, and the game delivered. Like, if Carolina goes out there and beats LSU 80-50, it's not as much of a story because it's a one-sided blow. But this literally came down to the last minute and Flau'jae Johnson, their best player, not stepping up at the right time.
Here is Dawn Staley talking about two great teams going at it after the game.
I mean, it's like that. It was two of the best teams in our conference in the country, just trying to get a win. And I mean, we all said it's probably going to be. The game is going to be determined in those plays. Like, I thought LSU got multiple offensive rebounds at the end of the game that put them in a position to close the gap, to go ahead. And then at the end, I mean, we got lucky. Flau'jae doesn't miss free throws, and we actually got a bucket after that. And it's those kind of plays that are determining the game. Man, they got a lot of them. I mean, they got 18 offensive rebounds on us, and 18 offensive rebounds from a team like LSU means they win basketball games like this. So it's surprising to see just how bad it was after the game.
One of the big reasons South Carolina pulls out the victory was the performance of Tessa Johnson, who is just stepping up now game after game. 8 of 13 from the floor, 4 of 5 from three-point range. Knocks down, has 21 points. Here is Dawn after the game talking about the hot start by Tessa Johnson.
Well, she was our offense, to be quite honest, and I thought we did a really good job at force feeding her the ball because she was hot. I thought Tessa did a great job getting herself open and square to the basket, and doesn't take long. It's not on her fingers long before she's launching it, and we're very fortunate that she was very efficient because we needed to stay close, especially with the type of crowd that they had, because every miss. You heard it every transition basket they got. It really mattered. So we wanted to do some things that would just kind of keep the crowd out of it. I don't think we accomplished that, but we did enough to get the win.
Two big stats in this game. South Carolina 8 of 17 from three-point range. LSU 2 of 13 from three-point range. South Carolina, great performance. 15 of 17 from the foul line. LSU 14 of 23, including those missed 2 free throws at the end by Flau'jae Johnson.
That was the difference, because Flau'jae, with 1, ties it, with 2 takes the lead. Like, that quite literally was the difference. And when you have two rival teams like this, it comes down to those minute kind of details and who's going to win and who's going to lose. And, Flau'jae Johnson misses the 2 free throws. Ball ends up in Raven Johnson's hands. And what does she do? She assists Medina Okot at the basket to give South Carolina a lead that kind of ices the game at that point. They make a couple free throws after that, both her and Okot do, and it's over. Like, it really comes down to the very end. Their best player did not step up, and your best players did.
803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in if you want to do so this afternoon. Anything you've heard from baseball to basketball to women's basketball, we've got it all covered here. We'll get into those way too early Heisman odds when we come back. You're listening to the Halftime Show. We're wrapping up hour number 2. J.C. Sherbert set to join us at 2:15 this afternoon. We'll talk with him a lot of Gamecock-related items as we roll along. As anything you want to weigh in, 803-803-404-6100. Again, anything from baseball to basketball and a little bit of football talk. And let's talk some football. South Carolina in particular for a second. We got some Greg McElroy news and some Heisman odds here. And let's start with the Greg McElroy news for a second. Greg McElroy coming out. And I tell you what, Dave, this is cut number 22, if you don't mind. Greg McElroy, who, I don't know, does he love South Carolina? Does he feel indebted to South Carolina? We're the one that beat him here back in the early 2010s. Years run together now. But here's Greg McElroy talking about South Carolina being a sleeper college football team.
Team number 10, the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, South Carolina is a sleeper because they have the single most important ingredient for an incredible run, and that's a returning high-ceiling quarterback. Lenore Sellers is back for 2026, and some of the changes within the coaching staff have me feeling pretty optimistic about what Lenore Sellers might be able to do this year. South Carolina goes out. They hire Kendall Briles as their offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. That's an identity move because Briles' offense, it's kind of designed to put a lot of stress on defenders by utilizing tempo and spacing and conflict plays and putting linebackers and safeties into pick your poison situations. Now, look at the schedule. The schedule includes some early home games against Kent State and Towson, and then it gets real. It gets real fast. At Alabama, Kentucky, at Florida, Tennessee, at Oklahoma, A&M, Georgia, Clemson. These are beasts. Yeah, that's a monster. It's a really hard schedule. But here's why they're still a sleeper. And that in the expanded playoff, South Carolina doesn't have to go unbeaten. They have to show that they can beat great teams and be dangerous late. And we saw this from South Carolina a couple years ago. How many close games did they win a few years ago? A bunch, right? They knew how to win close games. Last year, they had a bunch of teams on the ropes. They had Alabama on the ropes. They had Texas A&M on the ropes, and they couldn't quite finish. Well, now, if they can unlock Lenora Sellers' potential with the hire of Kendall Briles, that could be significant. Because if the offense becomes more consistent, South Carolina is the kind of team that can upset anyone. And in a playoff bracket, the can upset anyone type of team is not a very fun draw.
What do you think? Let's start with that.
I mean, I get it, and I feel like this is going to be a topic of conversation that a lot of people bring up in terms of, well, you have returning, the changes you made in the offseason and all that kind of stuff as reasons why Carolina theoretically could take significant steps forward. I mean, in that conversation, again, the schedule's not easy, as Greg McElroy just pointed out there, but you've been close. And again, we're sick of Beamer saying we're so close, but he is right. In the past 2 years, you've had a couple games really slip through your fingers against really good teams that if you have done enough to close and correct that gap and you theoretically start winning those games, then yeah, you should be in that 8 to 9-ish, maybe 10-win range where you start entertaining the idea of being a legitimate, playoff contender. Is it going to happen? Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. But this is becoming a common thing that I'm starting to see in this young offseason, that people are putting Carolina out there as that sleeper, under-the-radar type of team that may really surprise people.
Embrace it. Embrace it. South Carolina, look, South Carolina should be fine this year. They should be. They've got to live up to it. Are you with me on this? Instead of people being like, I don't want any preseason publicity. I think that's the next step, for one of the steps for this program besides just winning. Embrace being able to have a little bit of pressure on you.
If you're going to be consistently good, you're going to have expectations put on you year in, year out. Again, in the Beamer era, it seems like when they do get those expectations, that's when they fall flat on their face. But if Beamer wants to hang around here for a long time, you're eventually going to have a team that's able to live up and exceed expectations year in, year out. Because when you're good, people are going to expect you to be good again the next year. Yeah, you can play the underdog role and nobody believes in us and all that kind of stuff now because you had a bad season last year. But if you want to be consistent, people are going to start believing in you again.
803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in on that. I'm all for this. He makes a lot of great points. Now, South Carolina has to actually live up to it, right? They actually have to live up to it, and that's going to be step number 2. Now, other thing coming out, brand new Heisman Trophy odds, Tyler. And the one that caught my attention and the one that I brought up to you is now that we have Trinidad Chambliss officially in the fold, playing college football, he was number 2 on the list with 3-2 odds. But how did you go about looking at these new Heisman odds for 2026?
I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of going back to the thing about sleepers and stuff like that. I'm surprised Sellers is as low on the list as he is, because I think especially when you pair him with an new offensive coordinator, I feel like there's a lot of belief that, hey, we can kind of finally see that Sellers that we thought we were going to see a season ago, because right now he's 300-1 odds, and they don't have it listed in with numbers next to it necessarily, but he's pretty far down on the Heisman list to start things off as of right now. But the guys at the top, C.J. Carr, maybe a little surprising. Arch Manning, no. Josh Hoover, no. Jeremiah Smith, no. Julian saying no. Dante Moore, no. I will say.
Wait a minute. Why are you saying no to those guys?
Surprising that they're at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Like Carr, maybe, but those other guys, not necessarily. And then where did Chambliss come in at?
The one that I had him, I saw him yesterday. Now, obviously, you can go with a lot of different books or whatever. Had him at number 2 is where I saw him yesterday.
Yeah, I'm looking at FanDuel here, but they don't. I guess maybe they haven't updated it since he got granted his eligibility. But yeah, I would expect him to be towards the very top, because we saw him legitimately as one of the best college football quarterbacks a season ago. And if he backs up those numbers, then yeah, no doubt he's going to be in that mix this year.
Yeah, the one that I saw yesterday had Lenoris at 18-1. The surprising one, as you just mentioned, was C.J. Carr being so high at the top of the list. That is the Notre Dame quarterback, and I have to admit, was a little surprised to see him that far up. I thought Carr was fine this year, but again, I kind of would have expected a few other players, and I mean, a guy like Jeremiah Smith even to be up there a little bit higher.
Yeah, I mean, solid numbers this year. He's obviously going to have a lot of talent around him, but I guess the expectation is that he takes like a significant step forward in year number 2 as a starter and really puts up some dazzling stats.
803-404-6100. A little bit of college football news. We'll come back, recap everything. J.C. Sherbert will join us this afternoon. A lot to get to as we continue to roll along for a whole third hour. You're listening to Tyler Head, Captain Dave Adair, Bill Gunner. It is the Halftime Show.
It's all right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. I tell you about it all the time, but I'll remind you once again, if you had recent rain like we had on Sunday, and you have a crawl space under your home, you might have standing water underneath there, and that create a host of problems for you and your family, because standing water in your crawl space can invite things like mold and mildew, even invite termites into your home as well, which you absolutely do not want. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconfix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate those crawl space and foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconfix.com. Let our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist help you out with your foundation and crawl space.
2 o'clock on a Tuesday. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain David Dare, as we continue to get you through the afternoon here and get you all set up for another week as we have turned the corner, Tyler. Can you believe it? We have turned the corner. It has been 2 weeks since the furry little groundhog came racing out of his what is it called? A stump? I don't. What's he in?
I think it's just a burrow, maybe.
Burrow?
It's funny you mentioned that because yesterday, because it was a nice day, my wife and I went on a walk around the old mill pond there in Lexington, as we like to do on nice days, and I specifically said, I think Pontucky Phil was a liar. It's February at that point, 16th. It's 65 degrees outside, and it feels really good. And I don't think that we're in the middle of this, I guess, the third week of extra winter, as he predicted.
The third week since he predicted?
Or second week, however long it's been.
Today's the 17th. I think he did that on the...
If he would have predicted it on that Monday, that would have been the first week.
Well, that's true. Today's not Monday.
Yeah, because we're on the third week of his 6 extra weeks of winter, right?
Yeah, we're starting week number 3. Yeah, and it's going to be great this week. It's going to be beautiful weather, and we'll kind of enjoy that. But, yep, all right, moving on from that old groundhog there. So we'll kind of see how it all plays out. And enjoyable, though. And it was, aside from Sunday, and a washout, and Sunday was enjoyable. We had great golf. The AT&T Pebble Beach was phenomenal. You had big names on the leaderboard. You had big shots being hit. Scotty Scheffler was making a run. If you love golf, absolutely fantastic golf tournament. If you love the Daytona 500, I think you got everything you wished for. And unfortunately, sad to kind of talk about it, tomorrow, February 18th, will be 25 years since the passing of Dale Earnhardt Jr. at the Daytona 500. I'm sorry, senior, yes, thank you.
Junior's still with us.
But 25 years, and certainly I don't think a date, for me personally, a Daytona 500 doesn't go by where I don't think a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would highly recommend, if you have the time, watch Earnhardt on Prime.
Okay.
They did a really good multi-part series on him last year, which, again, tells you about his whole life and everything like that. It's incredibly well done. That was the first race I actually remember watching as a kid.
Really?
So 25 years ago.
Wow.
And I know I had watched some others in my younger years, but like that's the one I have cognitive memories of actually seeing on TV. And I believe Doug told me that was the first race he ever watched too. So we're alike in that way.
So you, though, are our aficionado, the official station aficionado. Nobody knows more than Tyler Head. And now we've got he and Doug Turnbull, and I was able to get him. This week.
You got us, man.
It took
a long season.
Took everything. Don't tell me that. I'm up right now. It took everything for Ricky Stenhouse to rally there over. Which Bush did he have?
So Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch. I got it written down right here. And then of course over Cody Ware, who you had. And we'll get set for next week where the boys go off to Echo Park in Atlanta. And that'll be on Sunday at 3 o'clock over on Fox.
It's going to be a pet peeve of mine. I don't call it Echo Park. It'll always be Atlanta to me.
All right. The Atlanta Motor, what is it? Is it Atlanta Motor Speedway?
It's Atlanta Motor Speedway. Echo Park bought the naming rights. I refuse to call it Echo Park.
You are allowed to do what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. So we'll get you set for that coming up on Thursday with Doug Turnbull as we do our NASCAR Survivor Challenge for the season. And I'm in the pros. I'm in the pros now. I got out of the amateur. It's like going from the minor leagues to the majors, and a good little start. But as Tyler just said, 35 more races to go.
That's right. Long season.
Long season. So you had that going as well. Baseball, we've talked a lot about that, and really how you feel coming out of that. And I'll be honest, Tyler, the probably the way to feel, if I'm going to tell y'all how to feel, and Tyler, you tell me if I'm wrong on this. If I'm telling you what you should feel, I don't think you feel any different than you did going into the weekend. I really don't. We still are learning. The loss is the loss, and it happened, and it shouldn't have happened. But I think we are going to be. I don't know where the drop dead date is on okay, that's who this team is. It's kind of like I used to have this conversation with Preston, and I ask you at times.
Yeah.
When do you see a team, baseball, football, basketball, whatever, and go, oh, that's who they are?
For me, and because of the way the schedule sets up, typically once you get past the Clemson series, I feel like because you've played basically 3 to 4 weeks of baseball at that point in time. That's a pretty solid amount of data to put in to kind of tell you what a team is. And obviously Clemson would be your best litmus test up to that point. If they run rule you, then you're not doing very well. If you win all 3 of those games, you're doing all right. Like, I feel like, especially considering the fact it's right before conference play starts, it really gives you a good indication of where the team is at. Not saying they can't get better in some areas, but you would have played so much baseball at that point, you have a pretty general idea of what a team is, like Carolina, before they get into the toughest competition.
Yeah, I probably disagree. Well, I feel like I'm going to know if this team is bad before I know if they're competitive. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like, if they are struggling going into the Clemson series, let's say this coming weekend against Army, Navy, and Air Force. And by the way, a reminder, that'll be a 2 o'clock game on Friday. So I'm guessing we'll do, what do you think, a 30-minute, I don't know, or an hour and 30 minutes?
Yeah, an hour and a half, roughly.
Okay, yeah. So we'll do that. And then Army will be 2 o'clock and the Salute the Troops weekend on Friday. And then at 1 o'clock on Saturday will be the Navy game. And that'll be followed up by the 4 o'clock game against Air Force on Sunday. But let's just say they split the games this week, Wofford and Gardner-Webb. Let's say they take 2 of 3 next weekend, and I know you were talking about Army's a little bit different of an opponent. I didn't see actually how Clemson did on Sunday against them. I'm pretty sure they swept them. Yeah,
they dominated. It was like, I think combined score 20-2.
Yeah,
across 3 games.
I know they'd had no problems on Friday and Saturday, but the truth is that if you've lost a couple going to Clemson and then you get swept, I go, okay, they're bad. If you won all the games that you're expected to, or you got a loss, maybe 1 loss, 2, and then you're competitive in the Clemson series, to me, to Bill Gunner, I'm probably looking at somewhere around Tuesday, March 24th, Friday, March 27th. You'll have played 2 SEC series, you'll have had that North Carolina game, and you'll have played Georgia. And at that point, I kind of go, okay, you are who you are by then. And by the way, unfortunately, at that point, that'll be Florida, which is a ranked team. That'll be Arkansas, which is a top 10 team. I assume will still be a top 10 team. North Carolina's a ranked team at this point. So you see what I'm saying? By then, I'll give them a series or 2 in SEC play when I'm seeing what is supposed to be like competition.
Yeah, no, and okay, you're going to give them a little bit longer leash, which is obviously fine. And I think we kind of knew maybe a little bit before then what this team was a year ago. But if you want to extend it out that far, that's fine too. Because again, it's almost like a second season starts once you get into conference play. If you have an idea of, or you have a general idea of what you've done through the first 20 or some odd games you played against non-conference opponents, then you lock in for those final 30 against the SEC with a few midweeks mixed in there, obviously, and that really determines on what your fate for the season is going to be in terms of making the tournament or not.
So we'll continue to monitor them and talk about it, obviously, again tonight. Let me remind you again, if you're just tuning in, tonight's game will be on 98.5 WOMG. The baseball game will be on WOMG 98.5. Please, please, please do not turn to 107.5 looking for the baseball game and then run to a message board and then say, oh, the 107.5, they're not broadcasting the baseball game. It is on 98.5. 98.5. The basketball game tonight will be on 107.5, the game. That'll start at 6:30 with Derek and Casey. 7 o'clock tip-off. They go to Florida. They're a 23.5-point underdog. Now, over the weekend, it's not the same. For those of you out there, well, why can't South Carolina fire Lamont Paris midseason? Look at what Kansas State did. Kansas State is pulling a bold move, Tyler Head.
And I don't think it's going to work out from them if I'm going to take a wild guess here on how this is going to play out. Yes, they are taking a big swing of the fence of trying to avoid paying Jerome Tang for some mean comments that he made recently.
All right. You want to hear the mean comments? Now, I'm dead serious. This is what's happening. If you're not following the situation, over the weekend, Kansas State fired Jerome Tang, their head coach. Now, a couple years ago, Jerome Tang came in the same year as Lamont Paris.
Yep.
Jerome Tang in that year, this was part of an argument about Lamont Paris. In that year, Jerome Tang had to put together a whole new roster, brand new roster, 13 new players. His whole team transferred out. He brought in 13 new players. I believe they made the Sweet 16 that year.
No, Elite 8.
They made it, okay. Elite 8.
Final Four.
All right, yeah, they made it all the way. Jerome Tang was the belle of the ball. People around here, as Lamont Paris was struggling in year 1, pointed at Jerome Tang, was like, see, You can do in 1 year. You don't have to be what South Carolina was. That was year one. Was that 2022, I believe? 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
The 23 tournament, but yeah.
So people were pointing at that. Well, now Jerome Tang's fired. He, last week, is not happy with his team. Here is Jerome Tang expressing displeasure with his current basketball team.
This was embarrassing. These dudes do not deserve to wear this uniform. There will be very few of them in it next year. I'm embarrassed for the university. I'm embarrassed for our fans, our student section. You know, it is just ridiculous. We got practice at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we will get this thing right. I have no answer, no words. So y'all got 2 questions. So whoever want to ask 2 questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability right now. But right now, I'm pissed.
How would you like to be asking that next question?
Oh, it was a good one. What do you make of that? So Kansas State is citing a reference here that says that recent public comments and conduct, in addition to the program's overall direction, have not aligned with Kansas. Again, I want to go back to the key. Public comments and conduct have not aligned with Kansas State standards for supporting student athletes and representing the university.
If Jerome Tang and Kansas State were at the top of the Big 12 standings, and this was after their blowout loss to Cincinnati, and they still had that loss, say, midseason, and Jerome Tang delivers that exact same rant, are they firing him this week if they're at the top of the Big 12? No. It's about losing. It's about not having results on the court, and they're trying to weasel their way out of paying him almost $19 million in his buyout by saying, ooh, he had some, disparaging comments towards the team. And there's a bunch of articles in his contract about upholding the team and upholding the school and being professional and all that kind of stuff. It's not going to hold up in court. They're going to lose this. I guess I admire him for trying, but this isn't going to work.
No, this is stupid. And you know what? I tell you what, Dave, let's play that one more time so you can listen. Let's play that clip one more time. And the reason I say is because he says, I'm embarrassed for the university. I'm embarrassed for our fans. He's basically, I don't know if he's taking ownership in this. I think that's where you draw a line. Is he taking some of the blame for this? He's obviously putting it on the players. Yeah. But listen to it again one more time.
This was embarrassing. These dudes do not deserve to wear this uniform. There will be very few of them in it next year. I'm embarrassed for the university. I'm embarrassed for our fans, our student section. You know, it is just ridiculous. We got practice at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we will get this thing right. I have no answer, no words. So y'all got 2 questions. So whoever want to ask 2 questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability right now. But right now, I'm pissed.
There's nothing wrong. I'm sorry. I am sorry. There is nothing wrong with that. You are now paid athletes. You are paid athletes. And I'd love to see more coaches call out their players like this when those players don't live up. Kansas State, by the way, 1-11 in conference, 10-15 overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of those guys getting paid more than the assistant coaches, so you're subject to criticism when you're getting paid a lot of money and not doing your job. And some of that is on Jerome Tang because he put the team together.
Right.
But, yeah, this isn't grounds to fire someone. It's not going to hold up in court. They're going to have to pay him a lot of money. And
$18.5 million.
$18.5 million, so good luck.
So for those of you who are like, look, Kansas State can fire a coach midseason. Why can't we? Totally different circumstances. And Kansas State, by the way, they're about to be embarrassed. This is going to be something that is going to be very, very, very embarrassing. Tom Mars, the attorney for Jerome Tang, has said if Kansas State's president and AD really thinks the school is embarrassed by recent events, that's nothing compared to the embarrassment that both of them are about to experience. Tyler,
yep,
you'll be back tomorrow.
Yep.
All right, J.C. Sherbert up next. It's the Halftime Show. 2:20 on a Tuesday afternoon. Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare, Tyler will be back tomorrow. We roll along. Joined now by the one and only J.C. Sherbert, who fresh off a nice few days where I guess you were busy with some business, but now you're back. You're in full swing of things. And, J.C., it was a busy weekend for South Carolina athletics. Baseball, we got softball, we got football, news, all kinds of things going on.
Yeah, it was eventful, to say the least. It was both basketball teams in action Saturday night in prime time, and like you said, some football news, and softball got a bunch of wins, and now they go to the West Coast. So it's a good time of year, Bill, because this is the time of year that you have football spring practice is right around the corner, so there's football stuff, and then basketball's still going on, and the spring sports start, and heck, I'm curious about equestrian. I need to learn about that sport a little more. I've got a lot of questions, but I know the Gamecocks are back amongst the national powers in that sport now, so that's good too. But certainly is a busy time of the year as we head into the spring and hopefully the summer, and then before you know it, it'll be football again.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe equestrian took down number one, so I cannot forget who it was. They took down number one over the weekend. Auburn, maybe Georgia.
Yep. No, it's actually did twice. From what I read, they beat Auburn, that was number one, and then they beat Georgia, that was number one.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say.
I don't know I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to admit. That's what I said. I have a lot of questions, but they beat Georgia 16-3. I would imagine that's a pretty lopsided margin, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I am not embarrassed that I don't know about equestrian. I just, like you said, probably could pay attention a little bit closer. But nope, that's all right. Good, kudos to them. That's a really good way of doing it. Now let's talk about a little spring football here. One of the things you mentioned coming up, and one of the things that occurred over the weekend, South Carolina is going to have to hire a new special teams coordinator in Joe D. Camillus. Your thoughts on him leaving? I brought this up, JC. I think because Pete Limbo had such a personality, and South Carolina did so many great things on special teams under his watch, that we would have given him an A+, and that while nothing drastically bad happened under Joe D. Camillus, we were probably like, oh, that's like a C+ under him, even though William Joyce last year was 12 of 15 from kicking field goals, and the 3 missed were long. They've been good, but is this a chance to upgrade?
Here's my thing. I think that, yes, Pete Limbo was a great personality. Yes, Pete Limbo is a great coach. Pete Limbo's a winner. The 2022 season on special teams at South Carolina, when you look back on it, Bill, it was just sick. It was one of the best special teams years for any college football team I can remember. Think about it. All the fakes worked. I mean, they got their tail kicked at Florida. But guess what worked? A wide-open fake punt to DeCarry Joyner for a touchdown.
Yeah.
You had Mitch Jeter bombing from long range. You had Kai Kroger, who could punt and throw. The coverage teams were good. Xavier Leggett housed the kickoff against A&M on the first play of the game. I mean, everything that could possibly go right for the special teams from start to finish that season were good, and that's abnormal. The next year, Limbo was still there. 2023 wasn't quite as good, right? And I think Joe D. Camillus did a fantastic job while I was here, because I remember the days under Coach Spurrier and when South Carolina would have a great day on defense and a good day on offense, but the game would be probably a little closer than it should have been, or they wouldn't win because they'd give up how many yards in punt and kickoff returns. And those things have not been leaky under Shane Beamer at all. South Carolina's very good at covering kicks. And, just sometimes in special teams, the trick plays don't always work out. Or sometimes you don't have a kicker with a leg to get it in from 50+. Although that's becoming more common in college football. So I thought Joe D. Camillus did a really good job. I think, he, fit in with the staff. The players love playing for him. Mason Love had a fantastic year last year. You had Vakari Swain, and to start, he had returning punts. special teams were, absolutely not the issue. Contrary to popular belief, I think we all just maybe got a little spoiled by that 2022 season, and then, everybody loved Pete Limbo. They still do. He was on X today. He responded to a tweet from at Gamecocks Show Inside the Gamecocks that people were talking about how it's hard to replace him, and he just responds, "Y'all are too kind." So, I mean, he's a good guy and certainly beloved around here. So anybody that replaced him is probably not going to get the benefit of the doubt. But, I think now you got to go replace Joe DeCamillis, and that's easier said than done. But Shane Beamer knows special teams pretty well, and we'll see what he comes up with. He's been, on paper, has made a lot of really good hires this offseason.
Yeah, in this day and age of football, and now you've got all the analysts and things are so different, is having a dedicated – do you think that it is important to have a dedicated special teams coach, or is this a scenario – and I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just kind of a devil's advocate. I think we both know he's going to hire a dedicated special teams coach. I was kind of making a comment. I don't know if I wouldn't mind see Shane Beamer, handle it himself and be a little bit maybe more in touch with that particular area, and then hire another position coach. I don't know where you'd put him. But do you think this is having a dedicated special teams coach is more important now than ever?
I think it's more, it makes more sense now than ever. Back when you were limited as far as the guys that could actually coach.
Okay.
I think that, if you could find a way to maximize your staff, you would. But now, Bill, I mean, you've got all the people that were quote unquote analysts before can actually coach. I mean, they can get on the field, coach. They can put them on the road. You can put the Darren Usher one on the road. I mean, you have a lot more flexibility. So for that reason, I think it is beneficial to have one guy coordinating your special teams, and that's the way Beamer's done it since he's been here. And certainly he's capable, having the experience he's had of being the special teams coordinator and doing a good job. But he's the head coach, so I think that's probably not likely that he's going to just take it over. But and part of the reason you can do that without you can optimize your staff now with the rules better than you ever could. I mean, you've got Trey Money, for example. He's now the linebackers coach, and he's going to coach linebackers, and Clayton White's going to also coach linebackers, but he got that promotion, and Luke Doty is now helping with the secondary, so those guys can actually coach too. So that's big. Whereas before you were allegedly limited by, some rules about being on the field, off the field, and all that kind of stuff.
Tell you what, JC, we'll hit our break here and come back, have a little bit longer segment, get into that Luke Doty thing. Greg McElroy calling South Carolina a sleeper team. And I also want to ask you about an underrated position group going into spring practice. So a lot of things to discuss. We'll hit a break and come back with JC Sherbert. It is the Tuesday afternoon episode of the Halftime Show. 2:34 on a Tuesday, a J.C. Sherbert Tuesday. Joining us this afternoon, talking a little Gamecock football. And J.C., let's look ahead to spring practice here for a second. And one of the positions, but what do you feel like, before I talk about positions, as spring practice is just around the corner, I think about 2.5 weeks away, given how spring practices are, the lack of information, the fact we probably won't have a spring game to actually watch and view, what are you listening for, or what do you think we can learn from this particular spring practice for Shane Beamer?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things where everybody knows there's a new offense being installed, and I think a big key to this spring practice is Lenore Sellers kind of getting the aspects of it second nature. They have to find an offensive line, have to identify some playmakers. There's going to be a battle for starting running back job that you keep an eye on. I think defensively, it probably gets lost on some people just because South Carolina's been so consistent at replacing folks back there. But the secondary did lose 2 guys that will be drafted. And so you got to kind of figure that part of it out. But, it's personnel related, things like that. There's not a ton of information that you can really apply to success on the field, I think. But I always tell everybody, any kind of practice session, all the information that's out there really is designed to tell you who's going to play for the Gamecocks more so than how good they're going to be when they line up and play, Kent in the opener and then Mississippi State in the SEC opener.
803-404-6100 if you want to text in. Now, I think one of the underrated positions that we're not talking about that was a problem last year is running back. I know you like Matthew Fuller and Jarwan Howe. What was your assessment of the 3 young men? I know it was a little bit of a surprise, but Christian Clark was a little bit too much of a good player to turn down coming in from Texas to go along with Sam Dixon and I'm blanking all of a sudden on the young man from Penn State.
Jabri Coleman.
Thank you. But the bottom line is now you include 3 young guys. Matthew Fuller's the most experienced of them. Your assessment of that running back room, which I think is the most underrated position group on the team, given that there is a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I mean, all the guys, in my eyes, they're all kind of similar. They're all good players, but you're probably going to have quite a competition in that room. I really like what Jawan Howell does naturally with the football when he's running it. Certainly could have made a case for him to get more carries down the stretch, particularly with once he got his chance, and did really well against Texas A&M. I thought he had some nice runs against Coastal, and then he only got the ball once against Clemson. But I think he's 225 pounds, Bill. He's fast. He's elusive. He shows some patience at times. And apparently, according to Shane Beamer and what he's said to the media, that he got better in practice too. So I got an eye. I'll keep an eye on him. Matt Fuller, like a lot of players, got sort of noticed by other schools this off season and elected to stay with the Gamecocks. And I would think if you had to say, tell me who you think they'll put out there first at running back, because you got to put somebody out there first practice, right? Probably be Fuller. He had the most carries last year. Isaiah Augustov redshirted last season, and he's back. And he was a starter at Colorado and played at Arkansas and was recruited there by Kendall Briles. He's certainly capable. And then the new guys, Christian Clark is the most intriguing one to me from the standpoint of if there's kind of a guy from the portal that'll come in and snatch the starting job or snatch carries, look out for him. He had a really nice bowl game for Texas against Michigan. Is a player that people may not remember this far back, but the first Mike Davis, he's got a similar running style to him. maybe a little accelerates a little bit better, but kind of I call them shuttlers, and that probably makes no sense to anybody. But it's kind of light on their feet, quick feet, and then they'll move forward, dart through the hole. I like him. I think he's a really solid player. He's also fundamentally sound. He blocks, he catches passes, things like that from the Phoenix area. So he was a big pickup. That's a fascinating group to me, because I did not think collectively they had the year that they could have had last year. A part of that was blocking, but then part of it was I just didn't think at times the rotation made sense. It was kind of weird, a weird, funky year at that spot. So with a new coach and some new players, just like other positions on offense, it's a new day, and they're certainly capable players in that room.
That's a big part of it. Greg McElroy stating earlier, I guess last week, that South Carolina, I think yesterday is when he did it, but that South Carolina is a sleeper team, one of his 10 sleeper teams for 2026 in terms of the college football playoff. I don't know if you've heard those comments. Have you heard those comments just yet?
Not from Greg, but I've heard. I've read. I mean, CBS had them as a sleeper team the other day too. There's people out there that are kind of popping up with that. So.
Yeah, what do you think about? I mean, look, I'm all for this. I think you've got to embrace this. I know everybody wants to say, "Hey, stay below the radar. Let's not get any publicity. I don't want to fall on our face again." I think that's the wrong attitude. I get it. Now, I will say, JC, I don't want to see videos from. I love Justin King, and he's phenomenal. He's the best in the business at what he does. I'm not trying to say anything bad about him, but I don't want to see the team promoting themselves. But I do like seeing national promotion from guys like McElroy. You mentioned CBS. I think that's a good thing. I think a little bit of publicity heading into the season, there's nothing wrong with it. So I like this. How do you take that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like last year where a lot of pundits had them penciled into the playoff, based on what happened in 2024. I don't think in college football these days you can base anything on two things: recruiting rankings and what happened the previous year, because you just never know. But with all the roster transition and stuff, but I'm with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that South Carolina probably got off schedule last year a bit, and nothing says that. If these players that they got out of the portal hit, and several of them have to, and current players get better, and the offense makes more sense, and Lenore Sellers has a good year, South Carolina's got talent. I mean, and you like how the schedule sets up early. I think that with a new offensive coordinator, new system, whatever kinks you have a better opportunity to get those ironed out against Kent and Towson. There's no disrespect to those teams, but those are teams South Carolina should beat. And then, Mississippi State, who knows how they'll be next year. They've got a bunch of new players again. And Jeff Levy's a good offensive coach, so they could be formidable. But, if you had to pick one to come in to open the season in the SEC at home against, it'd probably be Mississippi State. So I think that's a good thing. The schedule sets up a little better this year to ease into it, and I think that getting off to a good start would work wonders for this program and this team, because everybody start feeling good again, right, heading into that Alabama game. I don't mind it at all. But you got to take the good with the bad, because or the positive with the negative, and keep it all in perspective. Last year, Florida and Auburn both were dark horse playoff teams. Sleeper teams, according to the pundits, and nobody's really talking about Indiana and Miami. So, who knows what will happen. I think Phil still did have Oklahoma as a sleeper playoff team. Most had them around 8-4. And a lot depends too, Bill, on how does the schedule set up? I mean, you look at Texas A&M last season. You look at their schedule at the beginning of the year, you're like, my goodness, they got to go to Missouri. They got South Carolina at home late. They got to play at LSU. They got to play Florida and Auburn. None of those teams were as good as people thought they would be. And then they ended up, rolling through, and then they got to Texas and lost to Miami in the playoffs. So sometimes your schedule really helps you. I could say the same thing about Tennessee the previous year when they made the playoffs. So A lot of these teams that Carolina plays this year, because they got Florida, you got Tennessee. Is Aguilar going to be back? That kind of, how's Mississippi State going to be? What's going to become of Alabama? There's a lot. Arkansas is late and out there, so there's a lot of mystery yet again on the schedule this season.
He is J.C. Sherbert. When he comes back, I'm going to get his thoughts on a wide receiver transfer in and what he thinks more about Nitro Tuggle. You're listening to J.C. Sherbert, Bill Gunner, Captain David Ayer. It is the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Halftime Show. Wrapping up the show with J.C. Sherbert here. About 8 more minutes left as we have covered a lot of Gamecock football here, from Greg McElroy's sleeper comments to the running back room. And, J.C., one of the guys I know that you're kind of interested to see, I think a lot of us will be, especially with the loss of Vandravius Jacobs, will be the Purdue transfer, Nitro Tuggle, who started out at Georgia, got in a little bit of trouble. This is a guy that you've got a comparison to a former Gamecock that maybe is not well liked around here.
Yeah, and it's not universally. I mean, there's some differences in every player, but my guy Deputy Smitty was breaking Nitro film down and had a little receiver screen out to the side, and was mentioning that he runs physically, can break tackles and all that. And I thought about Juice Wells because not only in that Clemson game where he clinched the game with that, there were several times. Shoot, I remember when he housed it against Georgia on about a 3rd and 14 on a receiver screen. Juice was a strong runner with the football. And if there's something that, I would like to, just I think everybody would like to see more of out of receivers at Carolina, is ability to break tackles, also make people miss in the open field. And Nitro brings that to the table. I mean, 6'1", 195 pounds. He's a bigger guy, plenty of speed, but his shake and ability to be elusive in the open field and then run strong like that. I think that's what makes him potentially very good. And then in this offense, he's going to get some opportunities. So I see why there was some excitement out of high school with him, and probably not that I was not high on him when they got him. I mean, he's got a great name, and the feedback I've gotten on him was a lot of potential. But after kind of digging in on that and digging in myself, I think I probably got a little bit higher expectations for him coming into spring practice. So that's definitely one to watch. And I know a lot of people are probably glad to hear that, because there were a lot of Gamecock fans that were very excited that South Carolina landed Nitro out of the portal. And, I think that he could definitely do some big things in that receiver room this year, where there is going to be a bunch of competition, a ton of competition. But he's an older player, third year in college. I've got some higher expectations for him now.
Who do you think out of that young group, the ones we really didn't see, Malik Clark, Jordan Gidron, Lex Cyrus, Jaden Sellers we saw last year, who do you think's most ready to step up and really compete out of that group to maybe fight for a starting position? You're going to have Harbor. Mazio Bennett is back. Obviously, you just mentioned Tuggle as well. We'll see what Jaden Gibson is able to do. You mentioned that room's really interesting, but out of that young group that was so highly thought of 2 years ago in the recruiting process, is it Malik Clark with his physical build? Is it Jordan Gidron with his size?
Well, I probably, for the purposes of this, we're not counting Donovan Murph, right? Donovan Murph.
He played a little bit more.
Murph and Jaden Sellers played. I mean, the other guys. So if we're counting Donovan Murph and Jaden Sellers, it's Donovan Murph and Jaden Sellers. I think Jaden, I mean, you kind of look back on it, and that guy was consistently, once he started playing, he was the most productive receiver on the team. And so I think Jaden definitely is kind of a pencil him in, compete for a starting job guy. And then Murph, who came on toward the end of last year, he's another guy, kind of like Nitro, 6'2", 196. Good route runner, elite hands. Probably just didn't, like a lot of the receivers, didn't get the consistent opportunities maybe that otherwise, had he gotten them, his stats would have been a little bit better, and he probably made a few more really good plays. Out of the guys that did not play a whole lot, something tells me not to count out Jordan Gidron. I think, Murph physically was ahead of Jordan, and everybody kind of knew Murph was going to play. Jordan, extremely young, not only graduated early, he enrolled early. His physical transformation from like day one before the bowl game in 2024 to like the beginning of practice was night and day good. He's tall, he's fast, he was a track guy. The question is is he going to be more ready to go make a difference, not just play, but make a difference than some of these other guys, because the room is crowded. But, I like them all. I mean, you mentioned Malik Clark and big physical body that can go up and get it. You have Lex Cyrus. He can fly. Very fast player out of Pennsylvania. So, it's tough for me to dig in on that, because when I look at all of them closely, they all have different strengths. But Gidron is a guy in the back of my mind. Sometimes when we sort of forget about a player, when they're young, they end up surprising us. So just personally, that's a player that right there at Ridgeview, I kind of have my eye on. I have extremely high hopes for, because of what he brings to the table, and then sort of his runway and upside and ceiling.
Yeah, it's a group that certainly, again, we'll talk more about it. I don't know what we'll learn about the running backs and or the wide receivers during spring because of lack of really being able to see them. But as you mentioned, those first 8 quarters against Kent State and Towson, 2 groups that I'll be very, very interested to see. Before I let you out of here, got about a minute and a half. I won't make you spend too much time on it. The J.C. Sherbert takeaway from opening weekend of baseball.
Well, certainly Saturday was disappointing, and I don't think anybody that looks at South Carolina men's sports right now wants to have a team that can't score at all. And, there's little slight red flags, throughout the weekend, but, look, there are, 8 other SEC programs that lost games this past weekend. Wright State, who is in the Horizon League with Northern Kentucky, beat Georgia in Game 3. This type of thing happens more common in college baseball than in other sports. It's just with where everything is right now, Bill. It's just like you kind of go, man, it's a beautiful day, and then you got the comments about being tired and all that good stuff that I think the fans are a little put off by it. But that's nothing that wins over Gardner-Webb, and then against all 3 military schools this weekend won't make a distant memory. Baseball's not an undefeated sport, and teams could beat other teams on a given day. It was just kind of disappointing with how it happened. And up there in my hometown, the beautiful new ballpark, Fifth Third Ballpark, home of the Hub City Spartan Burgers tonight. There's no time like the present to get the bats going and turn it around and have another good pitching outing. I thought the pitching was pretty good this past weekend, and get back to playing Carolina baseball. You can't let that one loss stick with you.
JC, you're 100% right, and I always appreciate it. A lot of good stuff there, buddy. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll catch up with you next Tuesday and do it again.
Thank you, brother. Take care, man.
Take care. JC Sherbert, as always, on a Tuesday. Hopefully it's been a good day for you, a lot of fun today. Don't worry, we'll do it all again, and it'll just be a Wednesday. Look forward to talking to you then. Tyler Head will be back in. Captain David Dare. I'm Bill Gunner. It's been the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for AAA Heating and Air. Let me ask you something as we transition from the winter into the spring. Are you a small business owner, maybe a church or another entity, and you are in need of an HVAC system? Well, guess what? AAA Heating and Air has some exciting news for you. AAA Heating and Air right now is offering financing to qualified organizations to aid them in installing a new light commercial HVAC system. You heard that right. If you're a small business owner, a church, another entity, now is the time to take advantage of that. Give them a phone call and tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 803-677-1500. Again, it's 803-677-1500. It's just as easy as calling AAA Heating and Air and asking for a quote or finding them online at callaatoday.com. Call AAA Heating and Air today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you.